Hey everybody, this is Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse, and we're going to talk about how to build the Great Protection character and how to deal with it if you're the narrator. Let's get into it. This video is going to come in two parts. The first one is for players. There is a build, and it's a pretty simple build, for being able to protect your allies incredibly well. I'm going to tell you what it is because it's not a secret or anything, and I can tell you I've seen this in gameplay, and it is the most effective protect your allies strategy I've ever seen in multiple game systems. Then we're going to talk to narrators. If you have a player who is a protection-based character, how can you still make the game challenging for that character without being unfair? Let's get into it. So the same set of powers exists in effectively two different power sets. Elemental Control has the Elemental Protection 1 through 4 powers, and Telekinesis has the Telekinetic Protection 1 through 4 powers. These work in effectively the same way. For players, there is two different ways of building this protection capacity. The first one is in Elemental Control using Ego, where you have the Elemental Protection 1 through 4 powers. In Telekinesis using Logic, you are going to be able to use the Telekinetic Protection powers 1 through 4. These work in the same way. For every level of this particular power tree that you utilize, the barrier gets 10 points of health. So Elemental Protection 1, it has 10 points of health. Elemental Protection 4, it has 40. The defense score is your defense score for the mental stat that you use to create it. And it must be destroyed all in one hit in order to be destroyed. What makes these so good is that they could be created as a reaction. In other words, if you are about to be hit, you can use your reaction to create the barrier. And here's the way that it works in the current rulings. Let's say that I throw up Elemental Protection 1, which has 10 points of health, and the attacking hit is a fantastic success that does 120 points of damage. It destroys the barrier, but none of the extra damage carries over onto me. This makes a simple, very cheap protection reaction, something that can save unimaginable amounts of damage. Now, the rumor is that they're going to change the ruling on this, that it's going to change, and probably many narrators do it this way anyway right now, where the damage does carry over. This would encourage people to basically upcast the power, spending more focus, but absorbing more damage. And I think that that's fair, because I have seen this very low-level ability save insane amounts of damage. But as the ruling stands right now, a Elemental Protection 1 will cover the entirety of a single hit, no matter how hard hitting it is. And there's an obvious play to make this even better. The play to make this even better is taking combat reflexes, which gives you an additional reaction every round of combat. So now you're able to throw up 2 reactions and save 2 attacks from doing anything at all against your allies. This removes a ton of damage from the board and action economy from the enemies. Of course, adding things like spheres, like Elemental Sphere or Telekinetic Sphere, to be able to protect the entire party is even better. So if you want to be a protection-based character, you can do it. Put a bunch of focus on the character, grab some protection powers, either from Telekinesis or Elemental Control, and you will be able to protect your allies incredibly well. I have seen this at play, and it's just amazing. Now, I never want to take away what is fun for my players, but I still want to challenge them, because if the game is just too easy, it's not really a game. So how can we have a player at our table that is protecting their allies this way in an incredibly good way and still make it a challenge at the table? I've got some ideas for you here, and we're going to put in a little bit of a bonus for if you have somebody in the phasing power set as well. The first way is AOE Damage, right? Area of Effect Damage. Here's the thing about Marvel Multiverse. Right now, there's not a lot of area of effect abilities, and having things that are targeted against only one enemy, or only one of the PCs in this case, means that the action economy is really in the player's favor. So Because elemental protection covers one character at a time, having AOE damage is really going to be beneficial. Have some mechanisms for your villains or the weapons that they have, or, spoiler for the next section, the environment that they're in, damage in area. And by doing so, you're going to have some damage that is spread around the board, even though your players are using the reaction to defend some of the allies. Spheres are going to get around this, of course. So Elemental Sphere and Telekinetic Sphere can cover the entire group. And the problem for us as narrators, of course, is that this costs the same as an individual protection. In other words, if I was doing Elemental Protection 3, which is going to do 30 points of health on the protection, I could, for the same focus cost, do an Elemental Sphere that has the same hit points. So we might need multiple area of effect abilities in order to bypass a number of reactions that our players are going to have. But building in area of effect is going to damage multiple characters, it adds action economy to your enemies, and it makes the environment scarier. Speaking of which, let's talk about the environment. Here is something we should be doing in most of our combats. We should have an initiative roll for the environment. The environment needs to be reacting in some way. If I have perhaps a layer, then it's going to have, I don't know, lasers that are mounted to the walls firing. It's a comic book game, right? Or it's going to have explosions, or it's going to have perhaps some other kind of trap that goes off. Or consequently, you could be in a building that is failing and crumbling, and part of it's going to fall every single round. And by having the space change is more interesting for the players to maneuver themselves, but it will also add new sources of damage and action economy that work against the players. Having these also be area of effect is going to have more situations where the players who have protection abilities to make a choice. And here's what I mean by that. My players that are protection based, I do not want to take away the thing that makes them excited to play their character, namely the ability to protect their allies. That's something that they want to do. But what I want is for them to have to make choices. Do I protect them against this thing, or do I save my reaction to protect someone against the next thing that is coming? And by them making choices and saving the people they can when they can, they are still protecting allies, but they don't just get to negate every single attack that my enemies are making against them. The third thing, and this is particularly important if you have a character in phasing, and that is attack focus. Everything that is interesting in the game costs focus. That's part of the gameplay, right? And so attacking focus attacks the ability of your players to do interesting stuff. It means that they have to spend focus more conservatively. And also, this is one of the few ways of attacking people that are in the phasing power set. I've spoken about this before, but nothing in the game warps the way that I have to build encounters and villains more than phasing. Phasing specifically says that my player character is going to be untouchable by any kind of physical attack. And that's the majority of damage in the game. But the one thing about phasing is that quick phase costs 5 points of focus. Quick phase is where phasing gets incredibly dangerous for your villains because it can be used as a reaction when they are attacked, meaning that you can have a player come out of phasing at the beginning of his turn, attack an enemy, and then when they attack him back, he can phase out and is all of a sudden immune to all damage. And they can do this every round of combat. So having more things in the game attack focus is important. I'm thinking EMP devices. I'm thinking about psychic abilities. I'm thinking about perhaps other items that are in an environment that attack focus. We have to have more of these in the game. One, just to make villains more interesting, but two, to attack characters that rely on focus to effectively be invulnerable. If you build something that attacks focus, it either needs to be a villain that is in the space, perhaps a villain that is also in the phasing power set, or a device in the space that attacks focus. This is going to give your players a choice. They can attack enemies or they can attack the thing that is draining their focus. And more choices on the battlefield is always more better. I love the idea of a protection-oriented character. I think it's a great type of character to play. I think it's a wonderful build. And I love playing them when I am a player in games as well. But a character that is a protection-oriented character should not be able to protect the entire party from all damage. They should have to choose what attacks and what damage they're going to spend their precious reaction and resources on. And having more effects that you have as the narrator that are going to make those players make choices is going to make it a more interesting game for everybody. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. If it has been, of course, YouTube's made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.